Good morning, my friends, and welcome to the Space Game Junkie Podcast. I, as always, am your co-host, Brian, and joining me at an ungodly hour, as always, is your co-host, Spaz.
Brought to you by Dayquil.
Oh, are you still on that? Are you still...
Yeah, I'm still getting over a cold, so if you happen to hear my microphone cut out, it's just because I'm coughing and I don't want it to.
Oh, I hear you. No, you sound absolutely normal, which is great. Good. Well done, but sorry to hear you're
getting better.
Sorry you're still under the weather. But folks, we're doing an early morning 6 a.m. our time podcast because we have some guests from the Netherlands. Joining us from Convoy Games, we have, okay, I'm going to try and say these right. Sander de Visser.
Yep, that's me.
Okay, great. And Rianne Culin?
That's fine. I'll take it.
Okay. Oh, jeez.
Close enough.
Co-owner and community manager, respectfully, to here to talk about their upcoming space action adventure game thing, Landinar, Into the Void. Welcome, guys.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for having us.
Yeah, we are really excited to talk about your game because one thing that your game does that a lot of games don't, I'm just going to say this right off the bat, and I love it, it lets you walk around inside your ship.
Yep.
Yeah.
Not enough games do that. I'm just going to say that right off.
I agree. Have you guys played EVE Online? I'm sure you have.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Do you remember when they were trying to introduce the whole walking in stations? Everybody hated it.
I was on a hiatus from the game at that point. Like I took like a 7-year break because I lost my core, and you really can't play You really can't play that game without a corporation. Nope. So I didn't play it for years. So I missed that whole mess. But I saw it from afar, and
well, I thought it was like a really cool idea, and then they just didn't really do much with it, and I don't know, it's a bit of a shame, I think.
And it's gone now. They don't even let you do that anymore.
Oh, really? They removed the whole thing?
I'm not able to do it, so I guess they removed it.
Okay. Wow. Okay.
I mean,
I haven't played the game in years, but I don't know.
Like there was a game from the early aughts called Earth and Beyond that lets you do that,
yeah.
It was an MMO by Westwood that came out in 2003.
Oh, right. Yeah. But that looked really cool. I remember reading about it back then, but I think I was playing Star Wars Galaxies at the time.
Yeah, you can actually still play it for free, FYI.
Really? Okay.
Yeah. Well, like a lot of these older games, they're emulated by fans, so you could totally play both Star Wars Galaxies and Earth and Beyond for free if you want to.
Yeah, I've played a little bit of Star Wars Galaxies recently, and I mean it was really cool, but to be honest, it just didn't really work so well anymore after 15 years or something.
Yeah, I think we have a different tolerance for grind these days than we did even a decade ago.
Yeah, absolutely, and it's super clunky in a way. Like
God, it is so
the whole
clunky.
Interface, and it's just strange.
It is so.
I loved it
clunky.
back in like 2004, 5 or whatever.
Yeah,
that was pretty cool.
That was like, I think those early days were like everyone was still trying to figure MMOs out. So like you didn't have any kind of standardized interface. You didn't have any kind of.
Everything was different. The only standard thing you needed was like a gigabyte of memory, which was an insane amount.
Oh my God, that's right. So insane. But we're here to talk about your game, Landinar. So let's start at the beginning. What was the impetus for this game, and when did you guys start working on it?
Okay, so I think we started on it back in 2015, roughly. After we released Convoy, that was we released Convoy in April 2015, and then after about half a year of maintaining, that game and putting some patches out and stuff, we started sort of on a new concept for a new game, and the idea was to. After brainstorming a little bit, we wanted to make a sort of cyberpunk hacking stealth kind of top-down shooter thing. It's been a few places. One of the big elements of that game was supposed to be like sort of base building, where you could expand your lair and upgrade your stuff in your in your base. We didn't really have like very concrete plans for it, but we was sort of experimenting with several ideas. And then after a little while, we sort of realized, well, if we're going to make this game, we're going to have to make like really sort of detailed custom missions and stuff, like a really narrative kind of game. And we figured that was a little bit too much work for a 3-man team, as that was what we were at the time. So we decided to, how about we just stick some engines on this whole base you can build and then call it a spaceship. So that's what we did. And then we had a space game. And then it turned out, well, why don't we add missions to this whole thing? Because we were going to sort of have the tech anyway and mess around with it a little bit. So then we basically doubled the size of the whole project and figured, well, let's just go with it and see where it goes. We didn't really have like a very solid plan, and we were very loose on how we develop things. So it took us about 3.5 years to actually get from a totally different kind of game to where we are right now, which is a space action adventure kind of game.
And it is quite playable, and I really like how one of the fun things I like about it, and not a lot of games do this, the walking around bit, but how seamless it is. Where you can dock your ship and then get out of the cockpit, run around your ship, then run around the station, and from the same perspective. Like, it's very seamless. It's the same distance, it's the same angle from your ship.
Very fluid.
Yeah, very fluid, which is really
and that's because it started out as basically walking around was the first thing we made, and then only after we finished that we made your thing into a spaceship. So the whole it's sort of the other way around than most games do it, I suppose.
Yeah, it must be, because it's kind of fascinating how, like, when you go into the cockpit, you zoom out to the external view, and it's the same controls and everything, which is really nice. And so is there going to be combat on foot as well as in the spaceships?
Well, I don't want to make any promises, but seeing as this game used to have top-down shooter combat, and the mechanics are still sort of, the code's still there, but we just sort of removed everything because it didn't really work as well as you wanted to have it working, and the AI for foot combat was very different from space combat. And since it was going to be a space game, we just want to have the space combat take priority over that. So we didn't really develop anything further after like the first 6 or 7 months, but the base system is still there. So maybe in the future we'll have some sort of foot combat thing going on. I'm looking forward to having that, but I know I don't want to promise anything right now.
And we have a really long list of things we would love to implement into the game.
You can't see it right now, but next to Rian on the there's like a whiteboard, and there's, I think, probably about 100 things we want to add to it.
Wow.
Yeah. It's a bit crazy, but that's the whole thing. I think we could develop this game for another 10 years or something without running out of ideas. So,
it's never ending.
It's never ending, but that's always how it goes.
So you'll follow the paradox model of just build a base of a game and then continue bolting onto it.
Yeah, maybe. Like, I mean, it all depends on how people receive it, and if people don't like a feature, then we'll maybe change something or remove something or add something to make it work. Or
which is mainly the reason we decided to go into early access right now, because we have so many ideas and we have so many ways that we could go with it, but we really want to know what people like and what people expect and what they would want to see in this game, and prioritize that.
And you guys are going to early access next month? Am I remembering that correctly?
Yes. September 18th.
Yes.
Right. So about a month from, about 3 weeks from now. About 3 weeks.
3 weeks.
3-ish weeks.
Yeah.
From
exactly
when we're
3 weeks, I think.
Oh, really?
Yeah, exactly 3 weeks from now. Yeah, Tuesday.
2 weeks to go.
How funny! Oh God, no pressure, guys.
Yep. We have the rest of the team is working in. We have like our office has 2 rooms. Basically, it's a really small, cheap office. We have 2 rooms, and the other room is now filled with everybody because we basically shoot everyone away from this room to have some quiet so we can do this podcast with you. And they're just working there quietly, under pressure.
Well, maybe they've left. We don't know.
Oh, that could be.
Tell them all to say hi. I want to, if you can, tell them all, I want to hear them if they're all right there.
Well, we'd have to shout.
One of us would have to run out of the room to get them.
Oh, I see. Well, send our thanks for them being quiet. Roy says we're having fun here. He must be a.
Oh really? Oh, he's listening to me.
He must be listening.
Right.
Yeah,
he wouldn't.
He's on Twitch right now.
Cool. That's awesome. Yeah,
that's great.
He says we're having fun. You guys are working. So that's great. How big is your team now? You said it only started with a few people. So
yeah, the core team is with like 6 people right now.
Wow.
We expanded from 3 initially to 6 in total right now. So it's still very small, but yeah, we're managing. Yes.
So I guess Convoy did fairly well for you guys.
Yeah, it was our first game, and like when we started, we just had no idea what to expect of releasing a game. We were all still in university and still studying, so for us it was more like we wanted to make a game for our portfolio and see if we can actually get a job with in the game industry. But then we got picked up by a small local publisher, and they said, well, it's actually really cool, and want to make this game bigger than it is right now. And so it all sort of snowballed into an actual company and actually making some money off it. And now we've been doing it for 5 years. So that's, it did really well.
I have to admit, I did buy Convoy back in the day, and I found it way too difficult.
Oh, yeah. I think a lot of people have that. You were a backer, really? Wow,
yeah.
Cool.
Lovely.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much. I think, Convoy definitely has its flaws, and I wouldn't say it's the most perfect game ever, but I'm still kind of proud of it for our first actual proper video game that we made ourselves. So that's.
I'm not complaining. It seemed great, and I know a lot of people like it. It's just I've personally found it way too hard.
Yeah, I can imagine.
You have to commit to really get into it, learn it, and get with the curve.
Yeah, and sometimes the game, I think the biggest flaw of the game is that sometimes it just punishes you like without
too
any.
Harsh.
Yeah, there's nothing you can do about it. Just okay, you lose, and there was nothing you could do to prevent that.
Personally, on myself, I found that as I get older, I don't have the patience also for really difficult games. Like,
oh yeah.
As soon as I hear something is like Dark Souls or whatever, I'm like, nope, I'm out.
Yep. Yeah, I can imagine that. Yeah, it's. I think the same goes sort of for me. It's changed in I'm nearly 30 now, and it's still I still like playing video games, but it's not like when I was 12 years old or 16 or something.
Right.
I would play forever and ever in the same game, and getting better at it, and trying to become the best Counter-Strike clan or whatever. I just never really got anywhere, but. I tried, and now it's more like, okay, I have an hour to spare. Maybe play something, and I'll just play a little slow game and chill out a little bit.
But it's also like back in the day, you maybe had a handful of games, and that was it. You had to deal with those games.
Yeah.
And right now, you have basically unlimited access to anything you want.
Oh my God.
And I think you really also see it in the industry that a lot of games really take you by the hand as a player and guide you through it and lead you into it. And there's not really a lot of those really harsh, hard games anymore.
I mean, they still exist, but I think they're they're kind of their own niche now.
Yeah, that's exactly what I mean.
Yeah, well, and back in the day, like and that's before I was born, I suppose. Back in the 80s or something, you had these arcade machines that had these intentionally very hard games, so you could just throw in more money in them to try to beat them.
Yeah. I'm a child of the 80s, and games were far. But the thing is, there were fewer games, like even computer games. Like I remember, like I'd get an allowance, then I'd ride my bike to Egghead Software to buy that one game that I would play for the next 6 months.
Yep. That's I remember playing like Command and Conquer, like the first Command and Conquer. I think it was in '97 or something, like way after it came out. But I just didn't know there was a sequel or anything like that because we didn't really have any internet. I lived in a small village, and I know my neighbor, the kid next door, he had an uncle or something who would burn CDs for him, and he would get new games. It was like, wow, he has all the games, and I had no idea there was anything. So yeah, that was different times.
Yeah, the 90s were pretty much an explosion of gaming.
Oh, yeah,
it's just not stopped exploding since then.
Yeah.
Yep.
Now we're at a point where there's 7,000 new games.
Holy Lord.
In a year.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's getting more and more. Like on Steam, there's I think nearly 100 new releases every day.
Yeah.
It does feel like a lot. I try and keep up because I'm looking for the new space games to tell people about, you know. And so I go every day. I go to the new releases list. And it's insane.
There's a lot of crap.
Sounds like a hassle.
There's a Twitter account if you follow it. It's called Micro Trailers or something, and it's like a bot that automatically posts a 6-second trailer of every new release that is on Steam. So if you follow that account, you just
I don't, but I am going to. I'm going to find that. I found it. Yeah, there it is. Micro trailers. Yeah, you're absolutely right. Twitter.com/micro. Okay, I'm going to definitely follow that because that sounds fascinating. Like, it's kind of funny how, like, there are third-party sites now that help you digest Steam.
Yeah.
And clearly, we need it.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. So I gotta be ask an honest question, you guys. Do you guys find that discouraging at all? Does that make you work harder to try and make the game better? Like, how do you react to all the scrum out there?
It's sort of like a double feeling in a way. For me, at least personally, I think everybody has the right to release a game whenever they want. Nobody should be able to tell anybody that you can't release a game because it's not good enough or anything. So yeah, I think everybody should have that ability. But then at the same time, there's so much stuff on Steam right now, and I think Steam's actually very aware of it. I've spoken to some people at Valve. They sort of know what they're kind of doing, but it's kind of hard to, you have to find a way to make sure people find the games they like. And there are people who like, stuff that I would never consider something I would like, but everybody has a different taste and there's games for everybody. But as long as people find the things they like, then, and, don't get bothered by stuff they don't like, then that's a good thing. But, if the algorithm doesn't work or the whatever bot or whatever thing decides what you see on Steam doesn't work properly and things go under the radar, that's a real shame because, there may be a gem out there that nobody's heard of, and that would be a shame.
Yeah. Yeah, I totally agree. But I like your approach to it sounds very healthy, which is good because we have talked to developers who have gotten discouraged by just how massive Steam has become.
I think that the glory days would have been like 2012 or something. Because if then you would have a game on Steam and then everybody would buy it because it was the only release on Steam that day or that week,
Yeah.
And then, you would automatically have 100,000 sales or something.
Which you now can't even imagine.
Yeah, if you release a game right now and you don't tell anybody about it, nobody's gonna see it, or maybe like 5 people will, whoever browse the Steam list every day, like yourself maybe. But I don't know. There's a sort of balance point to it, and I think it's also, at least that's from my experience from releasing, the game before or releasing a game before, is that you have to sort of be on top of the whole marketing thing, and I don't mean like buy ads for game websites or something, but sort of try to mingle with people and try to get the word out there, and be on a podcast like this because this is great.
Getting to influencers and streamers has become a really big part of getting your game out there.
But I think at the same time it has been similar in say like the early 2000s or even the 90s, where maybe you didn't have to be on podcasts, or YouTube didn't even exist at the time, but you had to either make a deal with a retailer or a publisher, and there was no way somebody was going to buy your game if it was a download only thing because nobody had internet and there was no way to access that. I think the way it's now, there's no there's no power for the retailers anymore, but at the same time you have to do everything yourself right now, or get a publisher that does everything for you. But then there are a lot of scummy publishers who promise the world and don't deliver anything. But that's
Are you guys publishing this yourself? yourselves?
Yes, we are. Yeah, we have. And just to be really open about it, we have a deal with our previous publisher who helped us publish Convoy. Are also helping us publish this game, but we're doing it in our own name, and they're just sort of as an advisor.
Oh, nice!
To, help us. Yeah,
that sounds like cool. That sounds like a good relationship.
Yeah, it is, and it's a publisher. It's not like a big publisher with multiple people working there. It's just one person who does everything, and she's a nice lady, and we know her personally, and we have had a good relationship over the last 5 years. And if things go wrong, we can always just go to her house and throw a brick through a window or something. So that's we have some. We know where they are, and we trusting that works really well for us. Yeah.
So getting back to the excuse me, getting back to the game. So I think the thing said it was 10 sectors, which are basically different systems.
Yeah.
And these systems are pretty big.
Yeah, kinda. The thing for us right now is we're trying to, because size is relative. You can have a huge thing if it's empty, and then you move really fast through it. It becomes small again. If that makes any sense.
Yeah.
Or you can have a small world where you walk very slowly or fly very slowly in this case, and then it's big again. So it's a balance between finding something that feels big but not too big. It's.
And also that's big, but is filled with things.
Yeah, it has to be
an empty void.
Yeah. But then again, space is very empty, so it's not such a big problem if there isn't, anything special going on between point A and point B. If there's just nothing there, that makes sense in a space environment. It's a strange thing to consider.
It's a balance.
It's a balance.
Of course, I do have to say.
We have more.
Sorry.
Sorry. We have more like sectors in the game right now, but they are locked out because they're just not done yet. There's just a lot of empty stuff there or half-finished stuff, so we just sort of close the gate through them, and you can't really go there.
I gotta say, I like that. There seem to be like kind of some freelancer-inspired bits.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Like the trade lanes. For one thing,
yep, definitely, yeah.
Which I've always liked those. Can they be disrupted like in Freelancer? Like, can you get kicked out of those?
Yeah, kinda. Right now, it's if you just fly into them, fly through them, you can just sort of press, your brakes or whatever, and you just slow down, and then you just actually go out of them. I don't think currently the AI is capable of forcing you out of them. But that's something we definitely want to have.
Oh, that'd be great.
Yeah.
That was
on the would like to have.
Yes, of course. On the would like list. Yes, of course.
Yeah, well, we have this sort of, and it's still also, like many things in this game, it's a work in progress, but we have this encounter system that sort of calculates whether you've had an encounter in any like recent time or how long ago it was been, and it sort of on a dice roll it decides whether to have an encounter or not. And some of these encounters may be, and I think like Sipka, our program, is actually working on it right now, that he would kick you out of a trade lane, for example, and then you would, or transport lane as we call them, because trade lanes are probably trademarked thing for somebody, I don't know. But it'll kick you out, and then you have a little pirate incursion there.
Yeah, that was always a tense moment in Freelancer when you're going through the trade lane. You think you're okay, then all of a sudden you hear that trade lane disrupted, and you're like, "Oh crap!"
Like, yep. Oh shit! There you go. Yeah.
Yeah, that was.
Yeah, but Freelance has been a really great inspiration for this game.
Oh, that's good to hear.
We love Freelancers.
Oh, yeah. Who doesn't? I mean, that was such a good game.
It's one of the classics, right? So.
Oh gosh. Right, exactly. So the main story of the game is you're in this sector of space that's controlled by an empire. Like set up, like, so are you fighting that? I'm not entirely sure where the story is going. Are you fighting that empire? Are you just trying to survive?
So right now for the initial early access release, it doesn't really have the proper campaign in it yet, because we want to sort of release that in a single update. Like in one go, we have like, okay, boom, here's the whole campaign, and you can play. Start to finish. So right now it's an open world thing, and you are actually a bounty hunter, and It's more of a free form thing. You can fly around and do whatever you want, really, kind of. Help these bounty hunter guys out and do stuff for them, or just do other things for other people. There isn't really like a real like thread you have to follow or anything. But I don't know if you've played Subnautica, but that's something we sort of want to go for, where you in the final 1.0 release, we want to have a big update that has the whole single player story line campaign in it.
Yeah, so for right now, you do have some kind of bits and bobs here and there that will tell you that people are generally not very happy with the Empire.
Oh, right, absolutely, yeah.
That there are rebels around, and you could go seek them out, do side quests for them, but it's very open world, and you can go any way you want.
Yep.
Kind of like Freelancer, you did have this story that permeated, but you can also go off and do your own thing, which I think I think is like the ingredient of the best open space games, is that you have goals, but you can also do whatever you want for a while.
Yep, that's exactly what we're trying to go for. Yeah.
The last Shogun on the stream in the chat is asking, can you be pro Empire?
Theoretically,
sort of.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, actually, I think you can, because it's not like there's anybody's telling you hey, you're now pro Empire or anything. We don't really like tracking that sort of thing, because it sort of arbitrarily restricts good and evil, which is not really how good and evil work in my eyes. But you can work for the Empire and do stuff for them, and then screw the rebels and just murder them or whatever. Yeah, you can definitely do that.
Now, I want to ask about some technical stuff here. How challenging was it to get this kind of seamless integration between walking around your ship and then doing this zoom out where you're controlling the ship using the same controls and everything? Was that a challenge? Because I've not really seen many games, maybe any games, do this sort of thing where the scale changes, but all the controls stay the same and everything. It's really great.
Well, yeah, it has been a bit of a challenge. And I think we've had quite a few iterations before we got the controls working properly and figured it all out. And to be honest, I'm still not completely 100% happy with the way it controls right now, because there's still, I think, especially for space combat, it feels a little bit more like a little boaty or something. If it's not really you don't have free floating space stuff, so you can't really you can't even strafe your spaceship, right? So it's like a boat right now, and I think that there's definitely something we want to change in that, and maybe do something with special engines or something that allow you to maybe do a 360 rotation without actually losing or changing your trajectory or anything. But it's been a technical challenge for sure. Yeah, we've had some really big performance problems in the past, where as soon as you got on your spaceship, the whole game sort of froze, because it had to load the whole station out of your memory and then load your ship in, and that was a bit of an issue. But I think we've mostly streamlined everything now, and we've had some custom finicky things with the engine, because we are using Unity, which is maybe not the best engine suited for this. It's been a bit of a challenge, but I think we've managed it so far.
I thought the naval combat was intentional, because you actually have broadsides in the game.
Well, yeah, it is. For the bigger ships, it works really well, but when you're in one of the smaller, especially the starter ships, it just feels a little, I don't know. To be honest, I mean, people think it's probably fine if you don't really know any better, but we have had some experiments, and there are really cool possibilities of really nimble ships flying around as well, and I think it's something we definitely want to experiment with in the future. I think it's actually on the list, and I don't want to make a promise, but I think it should be one of the first or second major updates throughout the early access period. But again, I don't want to put me down on it. It's on the board here somewhere.
I don't know where you put it.
Yeah, it's behind your screen. Ugh, my cable is not long enough to check this. No, wait, this makes no sense. I have no idea. We have it somewhere. planned out somewhere.
You can just hedge it and say it's on the wish list.
It's on the wish list, definitely.
It's somewhere on the board.
Yeah, it is somewhere on the board. But yeah, it's something we're gonna improve, I would say. Yeah. And the same for the technical things, because right now there's a lot of, especially like when you first start the game, there's a really long loading time.
Yeah.
And that's not something we can really change very much, because you have to load the whole sort of game. But at the same time, we have, when you go through these warp gates, there's also a loading time, which wasn't there before, but we sort of had to put it in there because otherwise you would fly in a system and then suddenly you would get a lot of like hiccups because it had to load in all the AI ships and stuff.
Oh.
So there's been a bit of it's not as seamless as we would like it to be, actually. And did you know you can actually, during the loading thing, when it's not sort of half crashing the game, you can actually walk around in your spaceship while it's loading the next system?
I did not know that.
Yeah, it's something we want to. While you're in warp, yeah, it's something we want to maybe play with. But we found out it's actually, and that's a strange thing. It's actually there's I think a patent or something, or a trademark by, if I'm not mistaken, it was Square Enix or Sega who filed a trademark for or patent for like gameplay mechanics while you're loading a game. So that's a really weird sort of. Yeah, it's a thing. I can Google it. It's a really weird thing. It's there's trademarks or patents for it.
I actually
this is the first I've heard of it.
No, I actually, now that you mention it, because I remember there used to be games where it would be loading, and like there was a game where when it was loading, you could play like a Breakout clone or something.
Yeah,
like back in the way back in the day, and then all of a sudden that all stopped.
Yep,
like,
it's a thing. It's weird.
Oh, jeez, God damn it! I hate when companies do that. Like, I have an old joystick that's a force feedback joystick, and on games where it works, it's wonderful, but because of some copyright / patent lawsuit, they had to kill force feedback entirely. Like a decade.
I've just looked it up. It's held by Namco Bandai. It's called patent US patent 571816332A, and it patents mini games and loading screens. So I don't know. It's really crazy.
Today I learned, guys.
Yep. Well, anyway, I don't know if I don't think they're gonna come after us. Hopefully not, but I don't know. Maybe not. Well, we'll see. It's all.
But it only applies to minigames, so.
Yeah, true.
Well, it's not really a minigame. I mean, you could go around and maybe play around with
your stuff.
Yeah, true. So yeah, but we'll figure something out for the. There's not really anything you can actually do right now except walk around. But we maybe gonna put something cool in there, and that's also a thing. Maybe add random encounters during loading, so that when you fly through a warp gate, then suddenly like, oh no, there's interference or something, and if you don't fix it in time, you're gonna get kicked out of warp somewhere in the middle of nowhere, and then you have to find your way back or something.
I like that a lot.
It's one of the things on the list. So yeah.
Like that.
I could talk about ideas forever, but maybe that's not really something I should do because people are gonna think, oh, it's gonna be in the game. But
well, that actually reminds me of an old game we really like around here called Star Rangers by Interactive Magic. Whenever you did a warp jump, you'd have to manually fly through the warp tunnel. And
oh wow, that sounds cool.
And if you did it wrong, you'd end up nowhere near where you were intending to go.
Wow.
It was great. Cool. It was so great.
Oh, that sounds really cool. I have to figure it.
Oh, someone Chatham's in our Twitch chat said that patent you were talking about apparently has expired.
Oh, really? Oh. Well, okay. Well, that's a good thing to know.
There you go. All the breakout clones while you're warping.
Perfect.
Thanks, whoever was in Twitch chat.
Yeah, thanks, Twitch. We'll look into it and then add some more stuff to the game, or at least to the list first.
Speaking of walking around your ship, I wanted to ask, like, if you're like in a tricky situation, like you're in combat and you're trying to hide or something or get away, could you like jump out of the cockpit and fix stuff while you're trying to get away? Is that possible?
It wasn't in the beta build that you played, but it is now, I believe. At least.
Ooh, That's exciting.
Yeah, it should be. If you have you guys have the game on Steam right now, right? Because I sent you.
Yes.
Yes.
Then you should be able to load the beta branch in Steam, and that should have the latest build. But I can't really promise it's stable, and it may crash as soon as you start it. But that should have the repairing ship in while you're walking in the ship mechanic.
That's Roy's saying it's a repair gun.
Yep, it is. Yeah.
Oh, that's great. That's exciting because like I can just imagine like you're fighting some enemies and you're like, okay, I'm gonna try and hide in this asteroid field over here for a minute so I can repair this gun, and then go back out and wonderful,
right now,
wonderful. I'm so excited about that. We'll have to try that beta. Speaking of stable, I was really impressed at how well this ran on my old machine. There weren't any crashes. It did take a long time to load, like you said, but like that's kind of normal. I figured for my old machine that's kind of normal. But
yeah, I suppose.
But I mean, once it loaded, it was pretty. Especially, and one thing I wanted to talk about was all the detail. Like just walking around the station, there's just so much detail with like the lights on the wall, or I love when you're just walking into the station, you could see the lower parts of the station, and it's kind of parallax a little bit.
Yeah, someone noticed. Well done, guys.
I love that. That was so.
Thank you very much.
That was really great.
Thanks. Well, the Mardo set station, which is the big one, basically in the first one you find is basically the first station we made, and I think this is the second iteration of that station, but it's still very old. Like we made it over like a year and a half ago or something. So it has a lot of old things in it, and the newer stations that are also around, they are mostly a lot smaller though, but they have even more details. So I think we're gonna do at some point a design of Mardo set station and just add more stuff to it because we have more assets now, more props and all that. So it's gonna even look even better at some point in the future.
And more lively and
more lively because there's like all the NPCs you see, they just stand there and not do anything. But we definitely want to have them move around at some point, so it's they're walking and they're being alive, and the station is actually a living place.
It definitely looks lived in, this one station. It definitely looks like it's been around a while.
Oh yeah, it's old. It's messy. it's half broken at some places.
It looks like people are in the middle of fixing things. Oh
yeah, they are. Yeah.
Lights are flickering. It's just really nice detail. Now, will you be able to do missions like? Because I know there are bounties and stuff, but will there be other types of missions as well, like taxi missions, ferry missions?
Yep, definitely. Well, the bounty missions are like a sort of procedural generated thing, and that was like the first sort of piece of content we put in the game, so you can actually play something. But we have also have transport missions where you have to transport people from station A to station B. They just want to go somewhere. The interface for that is currently very rough, and it's actually a very strange way it works right now because you sort of have to buy these people and then sell them at another place as if they're cargo, which is not really how we want to treat people.
And the ship kind of treats it like cargo.
Yeah,
as well.
so those systems will have to have a little bit of a redesign because they're all sort of derived from the cargo system. But yeah, we aside from that, we have like actual proper like missions or quests, if you want to say them, but I can't call them a quest from Roy. Sorry, Roy, if you hear this.
Missions.
But they're called missions, yeah. But if you can, talk to people and they will have something for you to do, and they say like, "Hey, I need this thing. Can you get it for me? Or can you help me find this guy, or kill somebody, or just as
everyday
missions,
questions,
like everyday thing." Yeah. I think the first people you find in the Mardo set station is looking for his son. He's called what's his name? Walter Boylan, and he's looking for his son. And
I saw that quest. Yeah,
you can help him find him or not.
That's great. So
when I initially did that mission, during the beta, I went to the location where he was. Yeah, and then my ship got destroyed. No, my ship got destroyed.
Whoa.
while I was in the dialogue to pick him up, and then I couldn't, and so it bugged out.
Right. Okay, that's strange. Yeah. Like there were pirates or something killing you, or what happened?
No, the pirate was attacking his ship. It destroyed his ship while I was trying to get him, and then it destroyed me because I was stuck in the dialogue.
Right. Okay. Yeah, I think that's something that could have happened. Yeah. That sounds like
and
a possibility.
then I got back to the station and talked to his father, and then I couldn't do anything more with the quest because I didn't have him on my ship to give.
Yep.
Fun back.
that's something.
But that's it's understandable. It was a beta. So.
Yeah, absolutely.
We've had some problems with the encounter system where if you accept a quest which spawns in an NPC somewhere in space, the encounter system that we currently have can also spawn in pirates somewhere in space, and that could overlap, so they could meet each other and try to kill each other before you even get there.
Yep, that's a possibility. Right. And there's also a bug that sometimes it spawns like 2 quest NPCs. So if you have, that was something I saw. Like I was just flying around, testing some stuff, and then suddenly there's like, hey, there's this NPC guy that's from this quest from 10 systems over. What's he doing here? Like, how did he get here? But that's just bugs and stuff.
Yeah, at some point, all the special NPC ships that we made accidentally ended up in the normal ship pool.
Oh yeah.
So when the encounter system pulled ships from the pool, it could pull unique NPC ships.
Yeah, that breaks everything. And they also have then have the dialogue for quests that are not actually there, and it all goes really weird.
And it all goes wrong.
Yeah. Once one of those dominoes fails, the whole house collapses basically.
But we live and learn.
Oh yeah, definitely.
So let's talk about one of the other big features of the game, the ship builder. We haven't even broached that, but so we should talk about it. But folks, if you're unaware, basically, do I have this right? You can acquire parts that in the ship thing you can add to your ship, like weapons and internal components and things like that. And the tutorial
is very important.
You can get new ship templates by doing quests, so you can also build different kinds of ships.
Yep, they're
and
like
different sizes.
Basically, new hulls for your ship. So yeah, you start with a small ship, of course, and then once you progress a little bit, and then you get different hulls for larger ships, or maybe ships with more armor or things. Although I think right now the ship classes don't actually matter. It's just the ship size, and hit points get calculated by how big a ship is. But it's again something on the list we want to change. So if you have a hull type A, you get maybe a speed bonus. If you have a hull type B, you get an armor bonus or something like that. But right now it's only the size that matters. But we have more ideas for that.
And it really lets you decide what game you want to play, because all the guys here usually like the big guns and just blasting everything.
Yeah, man, you need at least 10 broadsides on a ship, right? So.
And I'm more of the explorer kind of type, doing all the missions. Just basically flying around space really fast. So I usually build a really fast small ship. And having the ship builder and having the choice of so many different templates and different parts to put into your ship, it really lets you decide what kind of game you want it to be.
Yeah, that's sort of the idea.
That's pretty awesome. I would probably also build the more missioneer type of ship my own self. Something fast that can kind of defend itself, but can really run away.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, running away is equally important.
Yes.
Who needs weapons when you have shields?
Right, yeah.
And all the engines. Yeah.
All the engines.
More engines, you always need more. Yeah, the whole idea sort of started out by playing, what's the game called? Galaxy Trucker, the board game. It's
yes.
It's a game where you have
Someone's excited.
Yeah, you have all these these little tiles, and you pick them out of a box, and the board game is really like this frantic sort of hilarious thing where you place a tile wrong and your whole ship sort of falls apart. But we had the idea of, different tiles do make your ship different. And even though everybody starts with the same sort of template, it's a triangle, or it's a whatever the Enterprise ship you have in Galaxy Tracker, you can make it whatever you want by placing different squares on it. So yeah, we did the same thing, and we initially had a system where you could build your own hull as well. So you could drag sort of thing around and have rooms and stuff working and placing stuff in your rooms, and you can basically decide to build your whole ship yourself, like even the shape and size of it. But it turned out that really didn't work very well and had a lot of technical issues with it. So we sort of had to scrap that or at least shelve it for a while. So now we have these templates, and I think it's actually a more fun mechanic, even though people still want to have freedom to build their own things. But once you're limited to something, you have to actually think about how you're going to fill something. Instead of when you have complete freedom, you're always going to go for the one thing that starts or comes to your mind the quickest, and there's no really deciding anything anymore, and it's all
you have to be creative.
Yeah, you have to, and now you have to be creative and come with solutions that.
And it's really it's a kind of a puzzle to get your whole ship together the way you want. Because
exactly, it's a puzzle right now instead of something that's super free.
It's a bit intricate because it has so many different elements to it. You have your power, you have your combat spots, and you have your what's it called, your fuel, and it's all kind of things
to take in consideration for your acceleration and stuff like that as well.
Yeah, all these things that you have to take into consideration while building your ship, while still building the ship you want to build.
Yeah.
And I have so much fun just messing around with it and trying to make the ideal ship, which never works because you're always short on something. But it's a lot of it's like a kind of mini game within the game because it's a sort of puzzle.
Yeah. Absolutely.
I noticed. Yeah, even your room distribution matters because your rooms can be disabled independently of the others.
Yep.
Yes.
So if you have all your weapons in one room, as those who watched Brian's video,
I saw you. Yeah.
That's what happened to me. I didn't realize it at the time, but that's what happened to me.
Yep.
Well, it clicks pretty quickly.
I felt they get disabled together, and then you're
screwed.
Yep.
that was sort of intentionally the thing for me, at least, as the way I look at it as a developer, I think we have to communicate very clearly that rooms are destroyed. And I think in even the latest update with where the repair gun is also included, the UI has improved quite a bit on that sort of front, so you can more easily see if your rooms are damaged or what's going on. So you're not wondering like, why doesn't my weapon work anymore? If you're just flying around and don't notice that there's a little like red square in the top left or the bottom left of your screen. But yeah, it should be a lot more clear now. But the system still works the same. As you can destroy rooms, but it also works for enemies. You can destroy an enemy's room, and if you fight the same enemies for a while, you sort of start to figure out, hey, these guys have all their guns in this room, so maybe if I just shoot this guy, this single room, he's already disabled, and I can focus on another guy.
Can you board other ships and take them?
Well,
it's on the would like to.
I think there's like a couple of buttons we'd have to press in the editor, and then you could technically maybe board ships, but then there's also a 90% chance of basically the game exploding because it's super buggy. It was one of the things we had in the game at some point, and then had to scrap again because it was too finicky and too technically messy to get working.
That's it.
Yeah.
That could be a Paradox style DLC down the road.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. That's it's on the board. Yeah.
So a couple of tangential questions to the builder. We had a question about stealth mechanics earlier. So are there going to be any kind of modules or things you can add to your ship to make it any more stealthy at all?
Well, I once again refer to our whiteboard with ideas on it. It's not something now. It's not something we have tried at all right now. It's something we have ideas for, but it hasn't been prototyped even. So I don't know.
That's fair.
I can't say right now.
But the other question related to the editor, are there going to be like cosmetic things you can add to make your ship prettier?
So right now there is, depending on where you build your ship, you get a paint job for it. So if you build your ship in the Mardo system, you get this yellow sort of skin. And then if you build it in the Camerock refinery, you should get the Camerock skin, but I'm not sure if that actually works right now. But we definitely want to add more sort of color schemes to it and more decals or way your ship looks. You can at least change a little bit. And then there's also the hull type. So you have like the hull type A right now, which is this blocky thing, and then the hull type B, which I don't think you can actually build anywhere right now, but sometimes enemies have it, or sometimes you find a ship with it, maybe. That should have. Okay. Well, they look differently anyway right now, and even though they don't actually do anything differently, they at least they have a different appearance. And I think once we have some more time and can build stuff that's not critical, because right now our 3D artist is actually building missions instead of 3D objects. Once we're sort of have more time for that, we can start designing more cosmetic things for the game as well. So it's something we definitely want to do at some point. It's all just a matter of time and when we can do it.
Which is the summary of this whole conversation.
Yeah. Naturally. I suppose. Yeah. But I mean, making video games just takes so much more time than anybody thinks. Like same for us. We'd never expected to work on this game for 3 years, but here we are. So,
and we've got so many ideas and so many ways we could go with it. And for now, especially with the early access coming up in 3 weeks, it's just focusing on what needs to be done right now and get the game working and get all the bugs fixed and get enough content in that people will be happy with it. And after that, we can start looking at other things.
Yep.
Right. So
totally fair.
How long are you guys planning on? Do you have like a plan for early access? Like 6 months, a year? Like, what is your?
We're aiming for a year.
We're aiming for at least a year. So in about a year, we'll have the whole single player story in it. At least that's the plan. And then after that, maybe some sort of DLCs or whatever, but it all depends on how it goes and what people think of it. And so I'm not really going to say anything beyond. Yeah, we're going to be in early access for about a year.
No, it's totally reasonable. I mean, as long as you're open about that from the start, which I think is a mistake a lot of developers make, is they're not as open and transparent as that from the beginning. Mm-hmm. So it looks like their game is abandoned and blah blah blah. So
that's not what we want to do with it. Like we really do want to commit to making this, at least finish the things we have on the planning thing of the board right now. So
that's awesome. Oh, we have another question. Can you add a battering ram to your ship? Oh,
it's on the board.
It would be lovely.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, it's actually ramming people does do a little bit of damage, but there's some technical issues with collision detection that have to, accurately, how do you say this? Like accurately calculate the damage that a ship does, and the way it works right now is that what you see as your ship is technically not your ship. There's a whole hidden layer of physics going on underneath your ship, sort of. So, when you're walking around in your ship, you're actually like in the game world, the ship you're walking around on is standing still. But when you're flying, a different physics entity in the game is flying, and that is all being calculated. So it's really weirdly complicated. It's kind of weird, but that's all to make it all seamless. You have to sort of separate layers from each other, and so the physics layer of flying around is a different physics layer from walking around, and so we have to calculate damage from flying around into other ships without your character actually flying out of your own ship, because inertia and all that. So it's complicated, but
that sounds very complicated.
Is something we would like to do, but depending on how technically feasible it is.
That sounds super complicated. Oh my god!
I gave up about 6 months ago.
Yeah, well, we have fixed a lot of things, because before, sometimes when you would slowly bump into an asteroid, like you see, like, oh, I'm going this. Oh, there's an asteroid. Or like the scene from what's the video called? Okay, I'm really losing my mind here. But when you slowly bump into a thing, it would sometimes randomly explode your ship, and then sometimes when you would fly into something with like 1,000 miles an hour, you would get no damage at all. So we sort of had to fix that and make sure it all works. But now I think battering rams are kind of tricky to do right now. So maybe sometime.
But you can still do it without the battering rams.
Oh yeah, you'll definitely still do damage, but it's not a lot. And we intentionally limited the amount of damage.
It does really help get the shields down from the enemy. So that's a pro tip.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah.
Interesting.
But it also gets your own shield down, or at least it should.
Yeah.
Right. So yeah, I think the damage is equal split between both sides and limited to a certain amount.
So someone asked this in the beginning of the stream, and I just remembered it, and I'm already guessing at the answer. But will there be multiplayer at all? Everyone asks that. I'm sure everybody asks that.
Yeah, a lot of people have asked that, and it's something we would very much like to do, but I don't think there is going to be multiplayer because it's such a technically difficult thing to do well. And we've never made a multiplayer game, and we are not very... I don't know. I don't know if we're good at it because we've never done it, and it's such a technical challenge for us because we have no idea how to do it. Well, we have some ideas. I mean, we know the theory, and we've done some experiments with something like 10 years ago when we were just messing around with stuff. But yeah, I don't see this gonna be multiplayer in this game.
I think at some point during development, we realized like we can make a really cool, really intricate single-player game, or we can make a really bad to mediocre multiplayer game.
Exactly.
Yeah.
No, I really appreciate that. As Nerdman on YouTube says, multiplayer ruins single-player games, and I completely agree.
Yeah, I think it definitely can, and it's something you have to be very careful about. You know, you can't just slap multiplayer into something and make it. Doesn't mean it's a good game, you know.
So many times it's a crutch, and also there's so many games coming out that are multiplayer only that no one plays.
Yeah, true. That's also that's a very big thing indeed, because you know it's nice to have multiplayer, but if you don't have anybody to play with, it's just a single player game, and yeah, you might as well have a single player game that's a proper single player game with all the time spent in making multiplayer working, making single player better, you know. So yeah, that's for us. That was the decision we had to make, and so we chose for single player only.
In terms of marketing and getting your game out there, really getting more visibility with a multiplayer game is very realistic, because people will play with each other, people want to play with each other, people will tell each other about it. And making a single player game, it's a lot harder to get the word out there and get people engaged and trying to get people talking about your game, because they can't play together on the same game.
Yep.
But I don't want to play with other people, so I'm totally fine.
That's good.
Well, that's good, yeah. Yeah, we're...
it's good as long as you tell as many people as you can.
That's what we're here for.
That's what we do, yeah.
That's what we're here for. No, I mean, there is something to be said for a good multiplayer experience when it's done right. You know,
yeah,
like,
absolutely.
If you build your core game with multiplayer in mind, you know.
Yeah, it can definitely work.
Yeah.
I think there's still people playing Freelancer right now, multiplayer, right?
Oh,
there's
yeah.
still populated servers,
Yeah.
and that's great. I think the community's been alive for so long. But at the same time, that's a risk, you know, if maybe in 5 years nobody plays our game anymore and it's a multiplayer only game, then that's... You know, it's a bit of a shame, because if it's a single player game, you can still enjoy the single player game for what it is.
Roy says
Roy
says people are still playing Diablo, which is true.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah.
But
I mean, the first StarCraft is still really big, right?
Yeah, so, but then you see other games, like there's this game we love to refer to called God Factory Wingman. It's
I've never heard of that.
There's a reason.
That's kind of a point, yeah.
It was,
multiplayer only.
Multiplayer only, like kind of third person arena combat. Like doesn't even have bots or anything. Like and like,
then it's
yeah, exactly. You're out the gate. You're already screwed. So
yeah, that's a big thing. I mean, there's so many MMOs as well. You know, they die out. How many big big AAA budget MMOs have tried to become bigger than WoW or whatever, and they all failed, and because they had 1 million copies sold, but that wasn't enough to keep the game going. And I don't know, like where do you put the bar? And if it's a single player game, even if there's only one person playing it, they can still have fun. So that's exactly. I don't know. It's for a small studio like us. I think it's a very risky thing to do and make a big multiplayer game.
Right. I mean, with Steamworks and stuff, I'm sure that makes making a multiplayer game a little easier. But still, it's a whole it's a whole different set of mechanics you got to come up with.
Oh yeah, absolutely it is, and I'm not really like super technical when it comes to multiplayer stuff, but yeah, from what I sort of understand from it and from what I've done with it, you sort of have to calculate things ahead of time and make assumptions about people's positions, even though you can't really confirm them until the packets have been transmitted, and then you have to move people around depending on all that stuff without making it seem jumpy or rubber bandy, and that's still big problems for many games. So I don't know. It's too much of a problem for us.
I think with a small team like us, we also couldn't get the support going for at least an online multiplayer.
Oh no, it's
that just takes up so much time to get that support running.
Yeah, but I mean, I'd definitely like to make a multiplayer game at some point. I think I have like 2 full concepts for like fully fledged MMOs like everybody has, but I would very much at some day, maybe in 20 years or something, like to make a proper, really big multiplayer game. But yeah, maybe in the future.
It's on the wish list.
Oh man, everything's on the wish list. Yeah,
we can dream.
Yeah, the dream list. Maybe that's a more accurate name for it.
Well, unfortunately, we have to wrap up because I have to get to work.
Oh, right. Yeah, it's early morning for you. We've been talking for over an hour.
So, folks, you can find out more about Landinar at Landinar, Landinar. I did that right, I think. .com. Yes. But it's also on Steam. It's hitting early access in 3 weeks. What's the exact date again? Remind me, please.
September 18th.
September 18th. So in 3 weeks from today, when we're recording this on August 28th, this game will be hitting early access. There's already a preview on the Space Game Junkie YouTube channel. It's about 40 minutes of me playing the damn thing and not playing it. Well, playing it all right. I totally didn't realize
I was fine.
I totally didn't realize I was damaged. Robot on YouTube. What are you talking about? No Windows 7 support. I played this on Windows 7, so I don't know what you're talking about. That doesn't.
Well, that's good to know.
Maybe the Steam thing requires. I have to look at it.
I don't know because I only have Windows 7 at the moment, and it ran fine. So yeah. Nerdman. Nerdman. They're about a year in early access. They said they're going to be. So they're fairly far along in development.
Yep.
But you can listen to the whole.
Okay. I think I see where that is on the store page. It shows OS Windows 8.
Yep.
Requirements.
Oh.
I see it. I am going to change that right now.
Good to know it works on 7.
It's good to know it works on Windows 7 because I don't think we actually tried it, but it should work because there's nothing really special about Windows 8.
That's from Windows 7. I gotta say, when I upgrade my computer, that's one of the things I'm going to miss because I'm going to have to go to 10. And I'm not.
Yeah, 10's not too bad, really.
I know, but I'm not looking forward to it because I love 7 so damn much.
And no one likes change.
Exactly.
10's definitely better than 8, though.
Yeah.
8's a mess. But
yeah.
Well, yeah.
Okay,
that's not even a discussion.
If you refresh the page right now, you should have a Windows 7 requirement.
Oh, great.
Instead of Windows 8.
Oh, great. Thank you so much.
Fixed it.
Yeah, no worries.
So, folks, just a couple of quick programming notes before we close up. Thursday, we're doing our last Borderlands 2 game for a while. We're finally going to... I don't know if we're going to finish Tiny Tina's Dragon Keep thing, but we'll get as far as we can with it. And we're going to move on to a new long play game next month, EDF 4.1. We're very excited about that. Because one,
Picking that back up.
Because one, EDF is amazing, and two, we need a break from Borderlands. So it'll be nice for a change. And then Sunday, I'm going to be doing a stream of Star Trek Bridge Crew with some folks from the Greatest Generation podcast, which is a Star Trek Next Generation fan podcast. It's really great. So we're going to totally muck things up in Bridge Crew. And then next week on the show, oh God, who are we talking to next week? I can't remember now. Is it the Treese Brothers? I think it's the Treese Brothers. Yeah, next week on the show, we're bringing back the Treese Brothers to talk Star Traders Frontiers, since they hit 1.0. We're very excited to have them back, because their game, if you all haven't seen it, their game is fan-freaking-tastic. So good. So yeah, we got a lot of stuff coming up, so thank you for watching and listening, everyone. Guys, thank you for joining us this morning, or afternoon for you.
Thank you very much.
It's been really fun to talk to you and hear about what's on your whiteboard, because that was like most of the podcast. That's what's on the whiteboard.
Cool.
But yeah, thank you so much. And again, guys, the game is Landinar Into the Void. It'll be out on Steam Early Access in a few weeks. It is quite a bit of fun and something a little different, which you need in this day and age. But it's definitely a good time, so definitely check it out. Wishlist it, whatever you gotta do when it hits Steam. And we'll see you next time. Thanks for watching and listening, everyone. Bye-bye.